Assalamu alaikum. I'm Sakina bint Eric, and I'm the social media manager for Khadijah Elite, and also the moderator of this live event today. Was brought to you by Khadijah Elite Matrimony, Inc. Khadijah Elite is a global Muslim matrimonial website offering resources, security, and the tools that Muslim singles need and that families need to find spouses online. They seek to help empower women worldwide and give them what's rightfully theirs: total decision-making through a safe and focused online matchmaking experience. This safety and security is even more important for divorced Muslims. They receive a lot of harsh treatment from their community and from their families sometimes, treatment that we want to expel through education, support, and hope today. The reason that a Muslim website's first public event is about divorce is because Muslim divorcees are overlooked by a lot of other platforms. And we realize through emails and contacts from customers and subscribers that they really do feel very insecure about it, and they feel like it's a drawback to them. Whereas the reality is that it could be a plus. You know, someone who is a little bit more mature, who has knows exactly what they want and need from a relationship, could be very refreshing for people, and it could even bring more response. So subhanallah, we offer this event and the resources and support so that stigmas and barriers about divorcees in Islam can be broken down today and always. So we have 5 amazing speakers lined up to speak to you today. We are pleased that 2 of our special guests and 3 who are on the advisory board of Khadijah Elite are going to speak, and they advise us, but also contribute materials for our resource section. So each of our speakers have 15 minutes, plus time for Q&A after each presentation. So the very first one at 1:15, or very, very close to this time, is Challenging the Self-Stigma of Divorce by Ambreen Yousaf. At 1:40, we're going to have Divorce Between Culture and Religion by Imam Dr. Hamid Slimi. At 2:15, Tafsir and Stories of Divorce from the Sahaba by Imam Mushtaq Sheikh. And at 2:30, we'll break, inshallah, for Salah and to rest. And then at 3, we're going to have The Productive Mending of the Broken Heart by Imam Dr. Ziad Darich. And unfortunately, our 5th speaker is not well today, so we make lots of dua, inshallah, for our dear sister Shahina Sadiqi. So I apologize if you had to come to the live expecting to see her, but we do definitely, she's on our advisory panel, and we would make lots of dua for her her return to the best of health and best of strength, so that she can join us at another event, which we hope to have on a regular basis. So please post your questions to our Facebook page. There should be a discussion area or a place for questions here. The questions do not come directly to the speakers or to myself, but they are moderated. So when there is a question that goes to a speaker, then inshallah, you will see that there, inshallah. So if the question does not get answered today, then rest assured we're going to be collecting the questions, and we're going to be answering them via our social media in an anonymous way, so that these questions can be addressed. You can see the answer, and others with the same kind of question can also see it. In the days after our event, we'll be going over these things. So we cannot directly have a conversation with anybody via Facebook because of how the meeting is set up, but be sure to follow our page, and any of the conversations and the topics that come up that you wish to see more of, then you be sure to let us know through our email, info@khadijahelite.com, or through our Facebook Messenger and through Instagram Messenger. So we're available through all of those meetings. So our email list is open, even though our website is not going to be open for membership until the end of February. So for now, you can send us a question or a Facebook message or an email. And now we get to our presenters. Alhamdulillah, we're going to be dealing with 4 excellent presenters today. And the first one is a dear lady that I got to meet virtually in an amazing event in November. The Khalil Center in the Khalil Center Canada had a beautiful private meeting, wonderful seminar with a bunch of different wonderful sisters, and Imam Mushtaq will be talking later. And she really just made all of us feel very good. Some of us were even crying, because for us to attend such a beautiful event and be speaking about divorce in a positive and a calm and a healing way. So I just knew that we had to have more of this. And so that's why this was the inspiration behind that today. So Ambreen Yousaf, I'm going to do a little introduction about her so that you know who she is if you don't already know. She has earned her master's in counseling psychology and is a registered psychologist with the College of Registered Psychologists of Ontario. She currently works in between 2 clinics in Mississauga and Toronto. She has extensive experience working with youth, couples, and families. When working with Muslim clients, Ambreen's passion lies in integrating Islamic psychotherapy in her treatment plans. Ambreen pushes her clients to gain self-awareness and set realistic goals to make positive changes in their lives. She is presenting her topic, Challenging the Self-Stigma of Divorce. Jazakallahu khairan, Ambreen. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Okay, thank you so much, Sister Sakina. It looks like are we live on Facebook?
Yep, go ahead. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, all right. Jazakallah khair. Just one little clarification there. I am not a psychologist. I'm a registered psychotherapist. There's a little bit of a difference there. Actually, a huge lot of a difference. But alhamdulillah, thank you so much for that warm welcome and you know, that introduction. Really grateful to be here and really you know, looking forward to this initiative take off. I think there's a huge need in our community for such a service, and I'm really looking forward to all the things and all the opportunities that you can offer, you know, for people who are looking to connect. I'm going to pull up my presentation, inshallah, if that's okay. I'm going to share a screen right here. Okay, so I think we're all familiar with, you know, the idea of you know, the stigma that is there surrounding divorce. I think one of the major challenges after, you know, a difficult marriage or a breakdown of marriage is the stigma that comes along with it. So I think when it comes to having hope over, you know, after a difficult marriage or a breakdown of a marriage and experiencing divorce, it really comes down to being able to challenge the self-stigma, which I will kind of explain, you know, in future, in the next few slides, challenging the self-stigma that comes, you know, with divorce. And so I'll get started. So one of the you know, the kind of defining factors of stigma is, you know, stigma in its essence is usually encompasses from like the public first, and it's usually that title, you know, that line that people say, you know, what will people say, and usually that's kind of you know, the space in which people often don't seek out divorce or stay in relationships or marriages that are not healthy for them. So the way that, you know, public stigma is defined is a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or a person, which means that a lot of divorcees are going to experience isolation. They're going to experience a lot of shame. They're going to experience a lot of exclusion after a divorce, right? There could be a rejection from the public just because of what the public's and social opinion of divorcees is. It's unfortunate, but it is the reality within the culture. And inshallah, you know, the imams will kind of address the differences between the culture and the religious aspects of divorce. But even from a psychological and mental health perspective, stigma is the one debilitating kind of factor that keeps divorcees from moving on or instilling or fostering hope in their life. And one of the big things that public stigma is, you know, the things that you hear about divorcees, you know, the things that you hear around divorce, you know, not even being able to use the word divorce or talaq because it's such a, you know, stigmatized word. what that does is that, one, it shames people into, hiding essentially. And one of the very unfortunate things that happens is that individuals who experience that stigma, usually associated with a lot of stereotypes and biases and prejudices, what it does is it creates a self-stigma. So here we define self-stigma as becoming aware of the public stigma, agreeing with those stereotypes, and internalizing them and applying them to the self, right? And the implications of such thing is it's a lot of self-blame. You hear things like, yeah, I am a failure. I had a marriage, it broke down, and that has something to do with, my own kind of character or my failures or successes in life. Of course, it makes you feel ashamed and embarrassed to even bring up the topic with family, with friends, with, future partners. There's a lot of fear that occurs, right? Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, which I'll talk about in the next few slides as well. And it causes a lot of low self-confidence and self-esteem, which means that if you're in a place of, low self-confidence and self-esteem, you're never going to want to or feel that there's any hope to try again, right? And seek out, potential partners again, build a healthy relationship again, because the stigma is so strong against, who you are as a person, that it limits you in those ways. One of the examples that I can use, and the way that it's linked to spirituality, and this is why it's so important to first address the stigma and the shame that occurs through those norms, or what we discuss around divorce and divorcees, is because it has really deep rooted, impacts. And one of the ways it impacts us, is our spiritual well-being, right? So when it comes to marriage in itself, like I'll use an example here that inshallah will help kind of understand what I mean by, a deeper impact on spirituality. One of the standards of what we consider, acceptable relationship, and one of the standards within the Muslim family, of public standards in a Muslim family, is, being able to have a successful marriage, being able to have children, being able to establish, some sort of typical kind of traditional family. And if you succeed in that for X amount of years, you're considered to be like, a good Muslim. So the way that this kind of plays out, in the context of women, and I use women here as an example. For men, it's very similar, but there's different roles that men play within a traditional, Muslim family. So one of the standards here is that a good Muslim woman, compromises, right? She fulfills her roles and responsibilities of a marriage, of a mother, of a wife. She keeps family ties. She's the foundation of a marriage. We've heard a lot of that. She's the one that keeps the relationship together. She's obedient. She's an obedient wife. She's an obedient daughter to her father. And then she's a good mother, right? So these are all kind of definitions, and attributions that we give, what we assign to women. And that's what would make her a good Muslim, right? Now imagine that's the standard, at a public level, that if a woman is fulfilling these roles, and for men they're different roles, she's a good Muslim woman, she's obedient, she's successful and all that. Now, what happens is when a divorce occurs and there is a breakdown of marriage, it's going to impact, at an individual level, at a family level. And the interpretations that come out of that is, well, I wasn't able to compromise. I wasn't able to fulfill those roles. I was not able to be a good mother because I couldn't sustain a marriage. I broke down the foundation of that marriage. I was not obedient enough, right? So it impacts how she or he views himself because of a marriage breaking down. And things like, maybe I'm not worthy enough, maybe Allah is punishing me, Allah has abandoned me, right? So one of the challenges here, what we're seeing is that, oftentimes we're centering marriage and family as the ultimate kind of purpose in life. And although, a traditional family and, having children and having a loving spouse are very essential components of being a Muslim, it is not the ultimate purpose in our life, right? And usually after a divorce, the common kind of norms and social norms, that and what divorcees hear are things like, your life has essentially ended, which is not true, right? Your life has essentially ended because you have, you weren't able to kind of succeed in a marriage, or that you're divorced, which makes us feel very hopeless, because if our whole idea about the purpose of life is to be a good mother, to be a good wife, to be a good daughter, and then when that breaks down, essentially your foundation is breaking down, right? So what I'd like to do here is to be able to reorient ourselves, recognizing that the institution of marriage is a very important institution within Islam, and within our family life and for society, for the foundation to be there. But it is not the sole purpose of our life, right? We want to reorient ourselves to an actual purpose, because how do we know that a divorce was not meant to actually contribute to our actual purpose in life, which is, closeness to Allah, the pleasure of Allah, and, achieving, His grace and His compassion. So that's kind of what I wanted to address and give an example of in this, particular situation. So with that being said, the damaging kind of stereotypes and attitudes that come along with this stigma, and I'm sure, the divorcees who are listening to this, we've heard almost all of that, right? So the minute you get labeled as a divorcee, it seems like that is the only label that you can live with for the rest of your life, right? There's no other label. And then there's a lot of stereotypes and attitudes like that might serve as a challenge to move forward, to have hope, to want to establish another relationship. A lot of people will say, well, that's too much emotional baggage, I'm not going to go there, or that's damaged goods, or that's, kind of broken, or, this person doesn't know how to have established, family ties. A lot of women here, and men, your life is kind of, ended, or you're a failure, or that blame is shifted towards you completely. That you may have been selfish in the relationship, wanting to get out of an unhealthy relationship, not wanting to get out of a relationship that doesn't serve, you anymore, right? So you hear these things, these particular stereotypes are in, kind of more, it applies for men as well. I think it's kind of equal when it comes to the type of stereotypes there are and the attitudes that are present. But these are some of the things that contribute to that stigma and that limit people from moving forward. Of course, there is, mental and emotional and social harms that come with that stigma. Oftentimes there is a loss of social status or even network. How many times have we kind of, our friends are a little bit more distant than us, or, they don't want to have anything to do with us, or perhaps we're not considered to be at the same status as other people because, of a divorce in our life. There's some isolation, there's rejection, even within our families, our extended families, somehow we're considered not adequate enough, or not, not being able to establish a relationship, right? The mental and emotional impacts, of shame and fear lead to things like depression, anxiety, and even trauma in cases of very, abusive, if you're coming from a divorced from an abusive relationship, right? Um, so how do we, now we get to the crux of it. I know I have a few more minutes, but how do we kind of challenge that self-stigma? Well, one of the most important things is personal empowerment, is being able to recognize that that public stigma is leading to the self-stigma and leading to those emotions of fear and shame, which in our religion and tradition are not actually present. And so, yeah, there are social norms and discussions around, unhealthy social norms and discussions around divorcees, but that doesn't actually make it true, right? So, whatever shame that you're experiencing because of a divorce in your life is not actually warranted. It is something that is a cultural phenomena, but not something warranted within our religion. And I know that Maulana Mashtak and Imam Hamid Salimi will talk more about that, because there are, beautiful, stories within our Sunnah and within our tradition, where the Sahaba and the companions experienced divorce in their life, but it was not something that others had the right to kind of talk about, or were entitled to talk about, which is definitely a very, unfortunate thing that happens in our modern day culture. So personal empowerment means, okay, why am I asking that question? What am I ashamed of here? What am I embarrassed of here? It's a very debilitating emotion, and recognizing that it's not something that you should be feeling just because others are making you feel that way. One of the ways that we do that is by empowering ourselves and actually speaking our truth, right? Recognizing, yeah, when I got divorced, it was shaming and embarrassing in the beginning, until I realized, what do I have to be ashamed of here? Of course, I went through a very difficult marriage, and I came out of an unhealthy relationship because it was unhealthy. So, I openly spoke about it and discussed it with friends and family and therapists and counselors that could help and support me in working through those, that difficult time and the aftermath of a divorce, right? And you being able to do that will empower you to recognize, your strengths, and gives you a lot of grounding, right? One of the things when it comes to disclosure and talking about, the issues, and this is what the platform here is for, is, you want to be able to share that experience with other women or men, because there are a lot of people who go through divorce. Right now, I think the rate within, the Muslim community is around 30 to 40% divorce rate, which is significantly high, I think. And for us to think that other people are not going through it, I think is not fair to ourselves or others. So once you connect with other women and men who are going through similar experience, it's going to create strength for you to realize, oh, okay, this person went through a similar experience as me, and this is how they dealt with it. And even seeing stories of hope as well, right? Seeing people who have experienced a divorce and then they remarry, right? And just being able to see stories like that can be very empowering. So just being able to disclose your experience, talk about divorce, allows you to kind of normalize the experience a bit, recognize that others are going through something similar, and also seek out support when you need it, right? Everybody has a different story, everybody has different challenges, and it's important that you seek the support that you need when it comes to disclosure and understanding that experience. I have two more slides, Sister Sakina. So two of the main emotions that really, limit us are shame and fear. That actually hold us back from being hopeful. So if we can overcome that shame and recognize that it's not a warranted shame, you need to drop the shame. There's nothing shameful about, and I'll say it like over and over again, there's nothing shameful about being a divorcee. Um, it'll free you completely, and a lot of the fears that actually exist are internal, right? Like that fear of, am I ever going to find anybody, right? Or that fear of, people are going to judge me because of this. These are usually fears that come from the stigma around us. And what I would say is this a perceived fear, right? It may not be an actual fear, because there are people, including myself, who after a divorce get remarried. But because of the stigma, it definitely is a lot more challenging. And the more we talk about it, the more we discuss it, the more we share our experiences, it would, a lot of those fears will reduce as well, right? So just recognizing that, a lot of those fears are perceived fears. Some of them may actually be real fears, but unless you kind of, face fears and risk kind of falling and going for it again, you'll never know, right? You can stay in that fear. You'll never know whether that opportunity is there to seek that marriage again. Um, the other aspect here that I wanted to, when it comes to reducing that stigma, is obviously the stigma is, a social injustice, and it is something that is caused by society onto a particular, population, right? So it becomes the responsibility, getting rid of that stigma becomes the responsibility as a collective society and a collective kind of ummah. And it is not on the individual that we stigmatize to say, oh, you got to stop feeling ashamed. This is something, this is why we're having these conversation, and, Khadijah Elite kind of initiating this conversation is we have to stop. We really have to stop, stigmatizing, because of look at all the harms that it does. And the few ways that we do that is education and awareness, having platforms like this, having social support for individuals who are experiencing divorce and going through a divorce, so that they can learn how to kind of work through, if there are any patterns that have come up in previous relationships, so we're not repeating the same patterns over and over again, right? A lot of understanding, a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion, learning how to unlink yourself from stereotypes. So, I always say that, every divorce is a different divorce. So don't like label and blanket slate all divorcees and divorced marriages. When you sit down with people, every single experience is a unique experience. So just being able to recognize that all of your biases and your stereotypes are not really warranted, and you're most probably wrong. So just kind of recognizing your own, at an individual level. I'm talking, in general, society-wise, recognizing your stereotypes. That what do you think of when you think of the word divorced? And what do you think of when somebody says, oh yeah, I went through a divorce? Even before I got divorced, there was a lot of biases and stereotypes, until I became on the other side and I realized, wow, that is not what it is. That is not warranted, and neither is it right or correct, and neither is it fair. So some of the, as a registered psychotherapist, obviously I support a lot of, women and men, through divorce experiences, recognizing that, It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to, fear. There's a lot of goodness when you do the work. There's a lot of goodness that can come, out of going through a trial like that. One of the major trials, I think, within our Western culture is, going through a divorce and break a breakdown of that, family, and then rebuilding that. Divorcees that I've worked with, including myself, have kind of, shared that they've learned, they've become stronger, they've learned the do's and don'ts, for a future relationship. They experience, they learn how to, or what a healthy relationship should look like, or what is needed to build a healthy relationship. Maybe that they had, maybe they made certain mistakes, and maybe they recognize that and they take responsibility, which I think contributes to personal growth. It builds character, right? Like, only when you're really, really on the ground, which, a lot of us are after a divorce, do we learn the beautiful trait of humility and recognizing that, Allah's in control. Unless we go through a trial or a tribulation, oftentimes we're not able to offer the same type of compassion until we actually go through it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's really difficult. Right? So it builds character. It allows you to gain self-awareness, deepen your relationship with Allah. A lot of divorcees report that after going through a trial like that, my relationship with Allah became better. And this requires a lot of inner work. I'm not saying that this is easy, but these are some of the things that come out of, when we go through a divorce, when we have that experience. Some parents, of divorcees and parents report being able to be a better parent after a relationship ending, being able to model a healthy relationship for their children. And I think one of the important ones is even a shift in understanding our concept of love as well, right? Is, there's love for the dunya, and then there's love for, Allah. And oftentimes we need experiences like this to remind us what actually matters. I'm going to just leave it on a really good note here, because I think this is important. Since we're on the topic of hope, it's, a very, very essential part of Islam to have hope. We are not a people of hopelessness. And it's this tranquility in your heart that develops as a result of one's yearning for desirable objects, right? While seeking the means to their attainment. So, we're oriented towards always having hope. And one of the ways to acquire that, and never to let go of that, but one of the ways to acquire that is reflecting on Allah's mercy and compassion, even during that trial that you went through, even during that very difficult time, that 5 years, that 3 years, that 1 month, that 3 months, that 10 years of marriage, that you reflect on the mercy and the compassion that was there, that Allah kind of, helped you survive, and then actually got you to the point of the realization that maybe this is not a healthy relationship. Just being able to feel the trust, and having that tawakkul, that whatever Allah plans, whether you see it or not, is good for you. Whatever is to come, whether it's good or what you perceive as bad, is going to be good, and it will be in Allah's hand to decide that. Also remembering some of hope enhancing stories, and I'm pretty sure that the imams who will present today will share those stories with you. They're very beautiful reminders of those. Even the life of the Prophet ﷺ gives you a lot of peace and tranquility in your heart. And then one of the other things is focusing on past accomplishments and blessings. And this is where gratitude comes in, and just recognizing that even though you went through a turbulent marriage, that you survived, and that you're here, and that there were still things that you can, you can be thankful for. So that's the note that I want to leave on, and recognizing, and we're trying to instill and foster hope. It's very difficult. I'm not saying that it's easy. It's very painful. But we can't survive without hope. So inshallah, I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I know I was very limited on time and also went way over time. But I hope I hope that was concise, Sister Sakina. Is that okay?
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I just had one question.
Yes.
If you can address my message there, there's a little technical issue because of the screen share, you're the only host. So if you can just deal with
gosh,
the room there. No, it's fine. It's fine. So we did get a question addressed to you in particular from in our email, and I was hoping that you could deal with it. It's similar, like you kind of already addressed it, but we could just deal with it quickly since it was sent in. She says, what process? So how can someone build trust after they have been through a traumatic situation of experiencing abuse and divorce? What process can they go through to instill trust in themselves and others so they can live a fulfilling life and hope for a healthy marriage in the future? That this is not a short question to answer, but I don't know if there's something resource that you can point them to, or
yeah, absolutely. Building trust takes time, and we shouldn't think that it's going to happen within a month or 2 or 3 or even a year within a relationship. At times it's good that you don't trust everybody, because at times we're naive and we trust people who we shouldn't be trusting, right? So in a way, it's not necessarily the like a bad thing, but again, you need a certain amount of trust and being able to let yourself be vulnerable again in another relationship. That takes time and actually a lot of work as well. And I always kind of resort to saying you have to seek out support. You have to do the inner work to recognize what's actually holding me back, because there's a fear there of something, right? So that fear of, if I trust this person again, I'm going to get hurt again. And so it's a way to protect yourself, right? So we have to learn, whether through psychotherapy or, whether through counseling, how can I protect myself, but also be able to trust other people, and let them in my emotional world and be vulnerable. So it requires a lot of work. Like I said, it doesn't happen within 1 or 2 months. It takes time, but also, it does require a little bit more inner work.
Certainly. Yeah, all of these things. I always, I liken this, if there's been emotional abuse, if there's been trauma, and you look at how long that's been going on, and then you look at the amount of time that you expect to be better. It's a lot. Like, you have to at least take that much time. It's like this example in this book about giving dawah and talking to people in a kind way, that you can get a wrecking ball and destroy a castle in a matter of hours. But if you want to build that castle again, it will not take you a matter of hours. It will take you years, maybe,
Yes, and research, just on that point, like studies show that it can take up to 1 to 3 years to heal through a divorce. And oftentimes divorcees are asked to, like, within 6 months, are you ready for another marriage? Like, no, I'm not actually, and it's okay for you to not be, and just take your time and trust that, when you're emotionally and mentally and physically there, that, Allah will present those opportunities. Don't rush into, I would highly discourage rushing into another marriage. I mean, it depends on the situation, but I would highly discourage rushing into another marriage right after a divorce.
Right. Okay, excellent. Well, Jazakallahu khairan. Really appreciate you taking time. I know you're a busy lady. You have other things to get to today as well.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful.
Alhamdulillah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah. Wa yakum. So I hope, inshallah, you can keep in touch with us, and we hope to have you back again to speak about this. As we discovered in November that this needs to happen on a regular basis. It's not just one and done. So alhamdulillah.